Hi YouTubers, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kiba Bam and I run a consultancy firm that focuses on bringing suppliers around the world into the export market in South Africa. My background stems from I used to be a merchandise buyer myself for some of the biggest companies here in South Africa, which include Woolworths, Edgars, Clicks, and the Foschini Group. My primary job as a buyer was to always to find suppliers who were not only compliant, but who had the supply chain to meet our demands. So how I then found a gap in the market, I always just realized there was a disconnect between buyers and suppliers. Suppliers didn't know how to put their offering to buyers, and buyers didn't have the actual time to look for relevant suppliers. So what my business does is what we call linkages. We will link suppliers to retailers, that match their product category. So today I'd like to talk about how to find an export market in South Africa. So I'm going to share with you about 3 or 4 tips to get you started. How to get the attention of a buyer, like what to say, how to say it. So when I look down, I'm just looking at my points. I just didn't want to forget to share all the amazing information that has helped me and my clients to get that first meeting. We sit down in front of the buyer, we knock it out the park, and we even get a second meeting to present or offer them our samples and our costings. So tip number one would be to choose the right market. Okay, so you're a supplier, let's say you're sitting in Ukraine, or you're sitting in America, or you're sitting in Mozambique, or wherever you are in the world. The first thing I'd always advise a supplier is, or even a small business, if you want to start a startup and you want to, play in the retail field, first thing you do, research the landscape of that country. What is their population? Economically, how is that country doing? Demographics. What is the split between the active population and the non-active population? And then drill deeper. What categories are thriving in that market? And there's many platforms that you can use on Google that can help you with that. You Google and you check what are the highest bought products within that region or within South Africa. Okay, we're talking about South Africa specifically. Then when you find that product category, and let's say your product category is within, that list of say top 10 or 20 or 100, whatever it is, then okay, great. There's a demand for my product in South Africa. Tip number 2. My second tip would be for you to double check that your certifications. Without certifications, a buyer won't even talk to you. A retail merchandise buyer or an FMCG buyer, if you have no certifications, they won't even entertain your the first meeting or even your first email. It would be a waste of your time and a waste of their time for them even reading it. So the first thing you need to understand, in that country, what are the certifications that are needed for me to trade in their retail stores? And a lot of the times, if you're in the food industry, you need an HACCP certificate. If you're a retail clothing and textiles, for example, if you want to be a supplier for Woolworths, I know for a fact that you need to be part of the bargaining council if you're going to be supplying clothing to Woolworths. So research what are the certifications needed in that region. Some retailers will want you to have a factory audit. Some will need an ISO 9000, but you just need to find out what are the certifications that are needed. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3, make your retailers list. LinkedIn is my best friend. Because buyers move around, they move around from one company to the next. People change organizations all the time. And majority of the time, people are quite good in updating their in updating their their details on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn to find who's the CEO of every retail company, who's the director for several departments within that retailer. So you want to know who's the decision maker within that value chain. And usually the decision makers in the value chain are a buyer, sourcing manager, and a quality assurance manager. So you want to, when you're googling, or you're googling in LinkedIn, you look for those people. You write their names down. You Google again, what is this, the number for the reception? You call reception, you ask for their email address, in a respectful manner, obviously. That is tip number 3. So you make your target list, or your customers list. So my rule is always to, if you hope to be in maybe 2 or 3 retailers, do a comprehensive list of about maybe 15 or 20 or 30 opportunities. And not only limit yourself to retailers, hey, try and also look for distributors. Distributors are quite plugged into the supply chain of the retail market. And they'll also be able to, find you those opportunities. Because firstly, majority of the time, you'll find distributors already listed in these companies. And if they're listed, it's easier for you to get in with them than you doing it on your own. That's why professionals like us are there to help you. And that was my tip number 3. Tip number 4, put together your sales email. Your sales email, your first point of contact, your email, is the most important tool to opening the first door to that meeting. Even your subject line needs to be catchy. It needs to tell them exactly who you are, what you have, and the potential that you bring to the table. What do you bring to the table is what is important. The body of the email is even more important, because now you're shouting about your organization. You're telling them how amazing you are, and you're showing them that you're well researched within that email. You're well researched, you have the capacity, you've got the capability, you know their product well, you've been researching, you know the laws of that land, you know the certifications that are needed. So in that email, you're showing off, you're screaming and shouting about who you are. So yes, those are my tips. For now, if you want to get in touch with us, in the bottom description, there'll be my email address, my website, and feel free to email me if you want further consultation. Cool, guys. I hope that helped. I hope that helped. And if you want me to talk about anything else that speaks to what I was talking about here, then please feel free to drop in your comment and I will make a video. Cool. Thank you. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.